Evil stepmother kidnapped her daughter, but what happened after was shocking. In movies, you see these young, loving mothers and wonderful things they do with their daughters. They go shopping, they do each other's hair, have movie nights, and the mother even takes the daughter to the park. Jess's mother is nothing like the ones on TV or in movies. Her name is Glory, and she's not her biological mother, but her father's young, beautiful wife. Her dad was hoping by marrying her they would become a big, happy family. Only Glory doesn't have a maternal bone in her body. Jess tried to see the beauty behind those sparkling blue eyes, but all she could find had been contempt. Once you hear the story, you'll understand. This was Jess's swan song. Jess lost her mother at a young age. She had seen pictures and heard stories, but no memories of her own. True, it sounds like a Lifetime movie, but it's real life for her. When she was 10, her father met the beautiful, young and vivacious Glory. Thinking back, she could see why he was so enamored with her. Long, silky, jet black hair, stunning blue eyes, and her shape could bring many men to their knees. Quinn was her father's name. He met Glory on a night out with his mates. He says it had been instant sparks, but she says it was something else. His friends didn't agree with the age gap, but he was caught up in Hurricane Glory. They were married in the blink of an eye, and Jess was swooped up in the wind gust. She tried to get to know her new stepmother, but she was more into spending her father's money, bossing the help, and ignoring her. Her dad spent a lot of time traveling for business, and on one occasion, he suggested we fly out to meet him. It had been a while since Jess had seen him. Which 10-year-old wouldn't want to see her dad? Plus, it would give her loving fake Glory for a few days. This is where her life takes a sinister turn, and her grim fairy tale begins. Florida is known for hurricanes, but nothing would prepare them for Hurricane Glory and her fury. You see, before her dad left, they got into a huge argument because of her. Well, not so much because of her, but about her. That day, she sat around the pool with her friends, and they were drinking. Glory beckoned her from the house because Jess left a floaty in the pool. "Yes, Glory," she answered. She could see the menacing look in her eyes. "I told you yesterday to take that thing out of the pool," she growled. Turning to look at the floaty, Jess knew not to press her luck. "Sorry, Glory. I'll get changed and get it out," Jess replied. Rising from the lounge couch, she stomps her way over to Jess. "You'll get it out now." Before she could reach Jess, she stepped back trying to avoid her aggression, but Jess's feet had no concrete to land on, and her head hit the side of the pool as she fell in. When she woke up, her friend Milani had been tending to her wound. "You're such a sweet little girl, Jess. You need to tell your dad how she's been treating you," she whispers as she glances over her shoulder. Shaking her head, Jess peers over her shoulder to see who can hear them. The concern in Milani's eyes gave her no comfort, but it did give her fear. Glory rushes into her room. She's panicked, but it's not for Jess. It's the worry of what Jess's father will do when he finds out. "Listen, the story is this. You were running near the pool, lost your balance and fell in. That's when you hit your head. Got it?" Milani's eyes widened in shock as she glared down at Jess. "Is that what you were worried about? Not taking her to the hospital, but some ridiculous story?" Glory squints her eyes, tilting her head to study Milani, and then she says in the nastiest tone, "Maybe you should leave my house and let me take care of my daughter." Milani and Jess looked at each other in disbelief. Jess could see Milani was about to give Glory the what for, but she quickly interjected. "I'm okay, Milani. I fell while running near the pool." She softly mimics back. Milani's demeanor softens and she looks at Jess. She grabs the first aid kit and storms out. Glory sternly looks at Jess as she leaves her room. Jess knew that that meant to stay in her room. Even when she heard her father downstairs, she didn't get up. It was an hour later that her dad came waltzing into her room. He was all smiles until he saw the bandage on Jess's head. The room was dimly lit because the sun was setting. He turned on the light to get a better view. "What happened to your head, sweetie?" he said, alarmed by the sight. Jess sat up, And that's when Glory and she met eyes, and the look she gave to Jess was cold. "It's nothing, Daddy. I fell while I was running and I hit my head," Jess answered reassuringly. The rage that filled her father's eyes even had her tighten her grip on the comforter. He turned to Glory. "Where were you when this happened?" Sour dripped from his words. They could see the sunrise in Glory's eyes. She wasn't expecting him to react this way. "I told her to stop running before she fell. You know how wet the pool area can get," she explained apprehensively. Jess's father gently kissed her forehead and stood up. He seemed to be heading right for Glory, but he pivoted and left her room, and Glory followed in tow, trying to explain herself. She left her room door open, which meant Jess could hear her father loudly scolding her about the accident. The next day at breakfast, the atmosphere was quiet and tense between Glory and Jess's father. She tried to talk to him, but he would give her one-word answers or a grunt. However, towards Jess, he showed a doubting father. Jess tried not to make eye contact with her because she knew she'd be throwing daggers with every glance. When Jess's father left for work, he left them at the table together. Jess tried to scarf her food down quickly, but she was like a puma, ready to pounce. Snatching her plate, she demanded to go to her room, but at that moment, her tutor, Byron, entered. He didn't know it, but he had been Jess's saving grace. Being homeschooled has its pros and certainly its cons. Today, Jess would have preferred to be in a classroom, far away from Glory. Byron had always seen Glory for who she was and vibed the room when he came in. He immediately suggested to get to work. Jess gladly jumped up and hurried past her. She thinks her dad wanted them to join him in Florida so they could do something as a family and repair any issues between Glory and him. It had been exciting for Jess because she's never traveled internationally. The day before they were set to leave, Glory told Byron she had to run an errand and asked him if he could stay a few extra hours with Jess. Byron happily agreed. That day, Glory drove to the sketchiest part of town and met with a shady fellow named Stefano Mank. Stefano had a reputation for getting things done for a nice hefty price. He had connections all over the world. She knew him from her days as a waitress. Even though she vowed never to step foot in Clippers again, she felt desperate. In her mind, Jess had to go, and he would know how to do it. Stefano sat in the corner of the club. He recognized Glory as soon as she entered. She tried to disguise herself, but the Versace shades and grey pantsuit were too high class for a place like Clippers. The music was loud, and there were barely 10 people in the club. He could see she was scanning the place looking for him. Easing from his seat, he casually walked up behind her. "You made a wrong turn. The country club is on the other side of town," he sarcastically whispered in her ear. Glory spun to face Stefano. She rolled her eyes and grimaced at him. "Stop with the games. Like I said on the phone, I need your help with something." He gestures for them to go back to the place in the corner. What she or he didn't notice was Milani sitting on the other side of the bar watching them. She knew they were up to no good. The two seemed very enthralled in their conversation. She could only see Glory get flustered at times. They were there for a few hours and phone calls were being made. Milani wished she could hear what was being said. Once everything had been settled, Glory left and Stefano leaned back with a crafty smile on his face. Milani could only imagine what the two had schemed. Quickly grabbing her bag, she headed out of Clippers to see if she could spot Glory. On their flight to West Palm Beach, Florida, Glory seemed very high in spirit. She talked with Jess and they had laughs. It felt strange, but they appeared as loving mother and daughter to everyone around them. She would cuddle Jess and stroke her hair. It felt like they were in one of those movies she was watching. Her guard wasn't up, and she enjoyed every moment. When they reached the hotel, her father left word he had to travel to Orlando and would be back in 2 days. They both were disappointed, but Glory suggested that they switch into their swimming suits and go to the beach. The scenery at the beach was amazing. Blue skies and the water were amazing. Sitting on the shore while the waves ran over her was so much fun. At some point, Jess noticed Glory had disappeared and she was alone. She called out for her, but she was nowhere in sight. Jess could see people at the pool through the fence, and there was no one sitting at the little hut they had to serve drinks. All their things were even gone. Jess got to her feet quickly and began to walk towards the hotel. That's when she heard her name, but it wasn't from a voice she recognized. It was a male voice, but not her father's. "Jess," he casually called out. Stopping in her stride, she quizzically looked at the guy. "Your mother had an emergency and asked me to come get you," he said as he approached her. "My name is John and your safe word is Sydney," he says with a warm smile. Hearing the safe word put her mind at ease, and she took John's hand and they headed off. He took her to his car and settled her into the back seat. They pulled off, and that was the last time she saw Glory or her father. A few minutes later, Glory walked out onto the beach. She looked in both directions, calling out for Jess. To the people around her, she seemed panicked, but inside, she rejoiced. She began to scream frantically and ask people for help. "My daughter, please help me," she cried out. The guests around the pool ran up to her as she played the greatest role of her life. Quinn was in a meeting when his phone rang. He was puzzled because it was a local number. "Hello? This is he." "What?" Frantic from the call, he announces to the businessman he must leave immediately. Leaving the conference room, he felt his knees tremble as if they were going to give out, but he braced himself to the nearest wall. Steadying himself, Quinn took a hard, hurtful deep breath. Straightening himself, he pushes off the wall and sprints down the corridor towards the stairs. Arriving at the hotel, there are reporters everywhere. He called the detective to let him know he was arriving. Police officers were there to greet him and get him through the crowd. When he stepped into the room, he saw Glory sitting in a chair. He quickly made it to her in 3 strides. "What happened? Why weren't you with her?" he asks frantically. Trying to keep up the farce of helpless mother, she tells him, "I stepped away for just a minute to get a drink, and when I got back, she was gone. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find her," she explained. He turned to the detective, his eyes pleading for some information. "Do you have any leads? Is this a kidnapping? What do we need to do?" he asks in a frantic voice. The detective explained that there had been no ransom note or call, and they were doing everything they could. Days went by, then weeks, then months, and a year passed. Quinn had become a shell of a man. He blamed himself for not being there when the girls arrived. Glory relished the attention she received from Quinn and her friends. Her appearance hadn't diminished at all. Milani hadn't been in the country since the last time she had seen Glory and Stefano at the Clipper. When she walked into a corner shop, she saw posters with little Jess's face. After questioning the shop owner about the posters, she put 2 and 2 together. Milani wasn't going to let Glory get away with whatever she'd done to Jess. She sat outside Quinn's business building and waited for him to come out. When she spotted him coming out of the building, Milani approached him. She explained to Quinn what she had seen at the Clippers, who Stefano was, and what the shady dealings he'd been known for doing. Quinn asked Milani if she'd be willing to tell what she'd saw to the police, and she did. A few hours later, the police showed up at the house and they took Glory down to the police station for questioning. During the interrogation, Glory revealed how she arranged for Jess to be kidnapped and that Stefano had been her accomplice. Somehow, Stefano knew the police were coming and fled before they could pick him up. This left Glory to face the charges alone. When she was asked about the kidnappers, Glory didn't know who had taken Jess, only that they were friends of Stefano's. Glory was convicted of her crimes and sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, the police are still searching for Stefano. It has been 8 years since Jess's abduction, and Quinn needed to attend a few meetings in New York, but he wanted to stop in West Palm Beach before continuing to New York. He walked through the hotel and out to the beach where he sat for a few hours just staring at the ocean. As he rose, he heard a woman say, "Daddy," Quinn swan. Turning, he saw this young, beautiful woman standing before him. She was dressed in a hotel receptionist uniform. At first, Quinn couldn't think straight. His mind raced, but the woman spoke again. "It's me, Jess." He knew who she was because she looked just like her mother. Slowly, he approached her until they were face to face. The young girl threw her arms around him and broke down into tears. "I've been waiting for you." Quinn let out a huge sob as he embraced his daughter. After their reunion, Jess explained to her father all that she had been through. Because of her trauma, she forgot things or blocked them out. Eventually, the man dropped her off at a group home in Texas, but the damage had been done. As the years progressed, things started to come back to her and she remembered the resort. When she turned 18, she left the group home and came to work at the resort, hoping to regain some memory. Then, when she saw him walk through the lobby, it all came flooding back. What a story! Let us know what you think about it in the comment section below.